All right, so April 6th, 2022, my name is Alex Alanis with On Point TC, and today we'll be covering market statistics. This information is a little bit old, but what I wanted to illustrate was the use of the research and the use of the information. So even though the statistics are a bit dated, and I believe it's 2016, 2017 from National Association of Realtors, the current information really is kind of irrelevant. What's relevant is the use of the data, right? And how we interpret that data. So that's how this class today applies to what it is that we do in real estate. So I'm not an attorney or an accountant. So if you guys wish to verify anything that I'm saying, please do. Take it with a grain of salt, please. As you know, I share this information to try and support our industry in here in real estate and try and strengthen the consumer's perception of what a real estate agent is and does. So let's get started. Okay, let's start with the bumper stuff. So there's my information. You guys are welcome to call me anytime or email questions if you should have them. And I do have a new fee structure, so just so you know, there are some charges involved in me acting as a broker in terms of questions. Only with transactions though, not just on a one-to-one, okay? And so just so you guys know, I mute you guys on my end. Feel free to chime in anytime, but please do me a favor. If you do happen to ask a question or what have you, just mute yourself after you're done, okay, if you wouldn't mind. I will be asking if you have any questions after each slide, but there is a chat room open. If you guys are welcome to use the chat room during and or before each slide, if you like. I'll try to get to your questions as we go through the presentation, okay? Thank you guys for logging in early so we can get an early start. I'd like to get the presentation up and going, and I'd like to get done by 7:30. Now, the last couple of weeks, we've been done pretty quickly. I have a feeling this is probably going to be one of them as well. There is 25 slides in this presentation, and right now we're at 6:06. So hopefully we'll get done by 7:30. And feel free to invite anybody you like. You guys have the meeting ID. There is no password involved in getting into this forum. And also, there's also the YouTube channel, which is also free. You're welcome to watch those presentations anytime. And I'll be working on new ones as we're actually approaching almost being done here with the live presentations. I will only be having live presentations when we have a new, when I have a new presentation made. Now, I do have the Avid presentation made, but we probably won't be doing that one for about 3 weeks. So I know I've been kind of flipping it around a bit, but I've been trying to get through the ones that are already done before we start getting into the new ones, okay? So any questions or comments before we get started? All right, so let's get started here, okay? So let's start with the definition, right? The process of gathering, analyzing, and interpreting information about a market or service to be offered for sale in that market and about the past, present, and potential customers for the product or service. Research into the characteristics, spending habits, location, and needs, sorry about that, of your business target market, the industry as a whole, and the particular competitors you face. So this is kind of on the surface in terms of market statistics, but it is very pertinent when we are trying to advertise our business. So this is just more of a professional view of doing that. And just know too that we always got, us as realtors, we got bombarded constantly from different advertisers that offer some of this stuff, and we'll cover some of that stuff today, okay? So moving on to paragraph number 2, accurate and thorough information is the foundation of all successful business ventures because it provides a wealth of information about prospective and existing customers, the competition, and the industry in general. It allows business owners to determine the feasibility of a business before committing substantial resources to the venture. Does that make sense, guys? So this is the reason why I did this presentation about market statistics, it talks about our abilities now to be able to research this information, potentially purchase the information, and then move forward onto using the information so we can advertise and potentially get prospects and business. Make sense? Any questions or comments? So market stat sources. So market research provides relevant data to help solve marketing challenges that a business will most likely face. It is an integral part of the business planning process. In fact, strategies such as market segmentation, identifying specific groups within a market, and service differentiation, creating an identity for your specialized service that separates it from those of the competitors, are impossible to develop without market research. Market research involves two types of data. There's the primary information. This is research you compile yourself or hire someone to gather for you. Or secondary information. This type of research is already compiled and organized for you. Examples of secondary information include reports and studies by government agencies, trade associations, or other businesses within your industry. Most of the research you gather will most likely be secondary, and that's because that information they're getting from themselves from a primary or secondary source. And I got somebody coming in here in a second. So any questions or comments on that? All right, so let's move on to slide number 4. So here we will start with the primary sources of information. When conducting primary research, you can gather two basic types of information: exploratory or specific. A response rate of 5% of this type of research is considered to be very good. Exploratory research is open-ended, helps you define a specific problem, and usually involves detailed, unstructured interviews in which lengthy answers are solicited from a small group of respondents. Now, understand that I took some of this information, right, from kind of like a study group. So it kind of refers to these small groups. This probably doesn't apply to us necessarily, other than the fact that we might be doing some cold calling or potentially networking, where we are in small groups. So this is where this type of process, if you will apply to us. Specific research, on the other hand, is precise in scope and is used to solve a problem that exploratory research has identified. Interviews are structured and formal in approach. Of the two, specific research is the more expensive. When conducting primary research using your own resources, first decide how you'll question your targeted group by direct mail, telephone, or personal interviews. If you choose a direct mail questionnaire, the following guidelines will increase your response rate. Right? So questions that are short and to the point. A questionnaire that is addressed to specific individuals and is of interest to the respondent. A questionnaire of no more than 2 pages. A professionally prepared cover letter that adequately explains why you're doing this questionnaire. A postage paid self-addressed envelope to return the questionnaire in. Postage paid envelopes are available from the post office. Now, as I mentioned before, this information was taken from a professional site. So take it with a grain of salt when they're talking about sending out a questionnaire with a prepaid postage, because we won't be doing that, right? Or we would think that most of us wouldn't be doing that. But the process of asking questions for most marketers, right, is called a call to action. Now, it doesn't say that here, but I'm just telling you verbally. The questionnaire, you can replace that with a call to action. So you're asking questions in terms of, it needs an answer. So the idea is to get these individuals that you're advertising to get them to ask you a question, because the idea is to get them to talk to you, right? You want to be able to talk to them. You want to be able to interact with them. Any questions or comments on that? So on the superficial level, we're talking about advertising. But for the most part, it's a primary source that primarily is coming from either referrals or your own personal travels, in terms of giving out business cards or maybe door knocking, or this is a more face-to-face telephone conversations, or even direct mail. Any questions or comments on that? Oh, I have a last one there. An incentive such as 10% off your services to complete the questionnaire. So I don't know that 10% off your services applies necessarily. Some of us have seen flat rate fees for realtors. That might be an incentive. But again, another call to action in terms of your advertising. Questions or comments on that one? So now we're talking about secondary sources, right? So secondary research uses outside information assembled by government agencies, industry and trade associations, labor unions, media sources, chambers of commerce, and so on. It's usually published in pamphlets, newsletters, trade publications, magazines, and newspapers. Secondary resources include the following. Public sources. These are usually free, often offer a lot of good information, and include government departments, business departments, and public libraries, and so on. Commercial sources. These are valuable, but usually involve cost factors such as subscription and association fees. Commercial sources include research and trade associations such as Dun & Bradstreet, Robert Morris and Associates, banks and other financial institutions, and publicly traded corporations. The National Association of Realtors does have this information about real estate. Educational institutions. These are frequently overlooked as valuable information sources, even though more research is conducted in colleges, universities, and technical institutes than virtually any sector of the business community. Public information sources, government statistics are among the most plentiful and wide-ranging public sources. Helpful government publications include the following. The State and Metropolitan Area Data Book, U.S. Industry and Trade Outlook, the U.S. Census Bureau website, the Statistical Abstract of the U.S., the U.S. Government online bookstores, and that's just to name a few. So the idea now here of secondary sources, typically you are purchasing it, but I do mention here that there are some free resources available, such as in public libraries and other governmental sources, okay? Now, what information are we talking about? Typically what we're talking about is anybody that we would target to either buy or sell, right? So when we're talking about the data that we're looking for, that's what we're talking about. Now, the process of getting that information is either primary, which is the previous slide. We talked about pretty much you're getting it yourself through mailers, publications, your sphere of influence, right? Or you're getting it from a secondary source, which would be public sources, commercial or educational institutions that you see here. And there's probably many more, right? This is just an example of what's available for secondary source data information. Any questions or comments on that? So let's do a quick funny, right? You didn't fill out the survey. I don't know who you are, but I will find you. And anybody who's seen Taken remembers this this scene. I thought it was pretty funny, but it kind of relates to the fact that this information that we're talking about in terms of primary, secondary sources is only really available to us if the recipient of that information gives it to you, because there are do not call lists. Some people don't want to be bothered with advertisements or what have you, so they put themselves into a position where they don't want to be contacted, right? And this is where I thought this was kind of funny. So let's keep moving here. We're on slide 7 and we're at 617. We're doing pretty good. So nationally speaking, the National Association of Realtors does research on a wide range of topics of interest to real estate practitioners, including market data, commercial, international, home buying and selling, NAR member information and technology. Use the data they contain to improve your business through knowledge of the latest trends and statistics. 5.51 million existing homes were sold in 2017, according to data from National Association of Realtors. 612,000 newly constructed homes were sold in 2017, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The Association of Real Estate licensed law officials, or irrelevant, right, estimates that there are about 2 million active real estate licensees in the United States, according to the 2012 economic census. Here are 86,004 real estate brokerages firms operating in the US. So there's 86,000 brokerages operating in the US. That's pretty interesting. Preliminary results from the US Energy Information Administration's Commercial Buildings Energy Consumption Survey show that there were 5.6 million commercial buildings in the United States in 2012, comprising of 87.4 billion square feet of floor space. There are approximately 150 million occupied housing units in the United States, according to the 2013 American Housing Survey. The typical owner-occupied home was built in 1976. The typical renter-occupied home was built in 1973. The typical home size is 1,500 square feet. The typical homeowner is 55 years old and has lived in the current home for 14 years. In 2013, 65.2% of families own their primary residence, according to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances. So now, there's a reason why I wanted to give you guys this information. I know it's kind of blasé in terms of, you know, who cares kind of thing, but it puts things in perspective of really the magnitude of the business that we're in terms of the reason why there's so many realtors, right? The reason why real estate has always been a very busy profession. It needs the amount of people that are in it to function properly. So this kind of puts things in perspective. But as you'll see through the upcoming slides, it kind of gives you an idea now on who to target. And really, that's the idea. Who should we target in our advertising, especially when we're looking for primary, secondary information? Who should we be targeting? Well, the fifth one down there talks about your typical home is built in 76 and your typical homeowner is 55 years old. That's kind of an indication, right, of who you should target, or who you potentially should be talking to. So any questions or comments on that? All right, so this is some of those market statistics that I was talking about, okay? So in April of 2017, which was 5 years ago, probably this month, there were 1,236,544 members to the National Association of Realtors, right? The local association has 1,222. 65% of licensees are licensees and 22% are brokers. The median realtor range is 53. The median experience range is 10 years. And the median tenure is 4 years. Right, so I thought that was an interesting statistic. Any questions or comments on that? So formal education of realtors. So the median work week for realtors is 40 hours. And I actually, that is a statistic that I took off of the National Association of Realtors, but I'll be honest with you, what are we calling work exactly, right? Median gross income, $42,500. Now, back in 2017, that was probably true, but nowadays it's probably a little bit more because prices have gone up considerably. 31% of realtors have some college, 31% have bachelor degrees, 13% have graduate degrees, and 7% actually have high school diplomas. And those are the folks that didn't go to college, right? So any questions or comments on that? All right, so realtor affiliation with each firm. So independent contractors are 86%, employees are 5%, and others 9%. So this would probably be like outside sources. But interesting that the majority of the real estate industry are actually independent contractors, right? when you hang your license with a brokerage, you're not an employee, you're actually an independent contractor, right? Lupe, I see you shaking your head there. All right, so moving on here. We are at coming up on slide 11. Oh, I'm sorry, slide 12. So these are realtors and technology. So 27% spend $501 to $2,000 annually, right? Which is actually a very small number. iPad use, 16%, smartphone use, 15%, right? And DC, for the life of me, I can't remember what that was, but it'll come to me. Operating systems, Windows, 38% of them use Windows. 52% of realtors use iPhones. 45% use Android, and then 3%, and there's BB. I don't know what BB stands for. Probably should have looked it up, right?
BlackBerry.
Oh, there you go, BlackBerry, 3%, and that definitely has dropped, because I remember BlackBerry was the go-to just to get your emails, right, back in the day. So 91% of realtors use social media, and that actually is not surprising, because I'll be honest with you, what I've experienced with the realtors is that they're trying to find the easiest way to get business. And I think there's a big misconception that people are getting a lot of business from social media. Very little. I put very little weight on social media, but realtors feel differently for some reason. So you have 91% of them on social media, and then realtor.com is top place for listings. So that statistic may have changed in previous years. Any questions or comments on that? So home buyer statistics. So for first-time home buyers, 34%. The median household income is $75,000. Median repeat buyers of 54%. Median household income is $97,000. 91% of realtors use social media, which we actually already talked about. And then typical home size is 1870 square feet. And again, these statistics are taken from the National Association of Realtors. Now, what's interesting about what we're talking about here, and this has to do with the first part of the presentation, when we're talking about primary and secondary sources, and I was talking to you about targeting with your advertising. This kind of gives you an idea of who to target if and when you're doing an advertising campaign. So let's just say that you decide that you want to target first-time home buyers, right? And that happens to be your forte. Well, you understand that 34% of your sample is already kind of been introduced to that statistic. You know, you already know that that's your statistic. The same thing goes with the median household rate, 75,000. So you pretty much know nowadays you need 2 of those incomes in order to purchase a home here in Southern California, right? You pretty much need $100,000 to $140,000, $150,000 to afford $3,500 to $4,500 house payment. So now you can kind of get an idea of who to target. You're obviously not going to target people that are, or folks that are making, you know, 30 grand a year to purchase a home, especially here in Southern California. Now, maybe out of state, right? But at minimum, it gives you an idea of how to plan your marketing and how to appropriately target your audience. Any questions or comments on that? So now these are home buying statistics. Typical age of the home is 1991, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Buyers typically finance 90%, loan to value 87% of buyers use a realtor. So that's an interesting statistic. Repeat business for realtors is 89%, meaning that that your referral base is your previous clients, and you should always be advertising to your previous clients. If you guys want ideas on that, I can give you some great ideas that I've used in the past that worked crazy good. I mean, people were calling me just to talk, right? They already bought their place, but they just wanted to call and thank me for what I said to them, right? And then buyers purchasing in their area is 37%, meaning that they make a lateral move, say from that city to the same city, right? So it is a smaller number, but most people move into different areas for different reasons. Any questions or comments on that? All right, so we're at 629 right now. We're on slide 15, so we're actually moving pretty good. Let's move on to where did buyers find their homes, right? So 51% of buyers found their homes on the internet. 30% of them found their homes through a real estate agent. 7%, and this kind of goes back a few weeks ago when we talked about for sale by owners, 7% of them bought them through a yard or open house sign. 6%, and this goes again back to FSBOs, right? Friend, relative, or neighbor. And then 2% of homeowners bought new homes, so home builder, and then 2% of them bought them from the seller direct. So you can see that for sale by owners are probably a good target in terms of trying to get them to list with you. But 51% of homeowners, and this is based on a statistic by the National Association of Realtors, 51% of people find their homes on the internet, which is not surprising because we're on MLS, we are putting those homes on the internet. Now, there are these companies that harvest that information and then put it on their websites and kind of own it, if you will, at that point. But that's where they get that statistic. So a clue or a little nugget, if we may, about today's presentation is that you should be on the internet one way or another. And I don't mean social media. I mean potentially a website, a blog, something where people can search for property, something where people can actually gather information. That would be a very good way to market to any potential buyer or seller. And again, these are statistics based on the National Association of Realtors. Any questions or comments on that? All right, so moving right along here. Home seller statistics, okay? So typical home sellers, age is 55, median household income is 103K. Sellers assisted by realtors is 89%. So that pretty much tells you that that 9 out of 10 sellers will use a realtor. So you should be targeting sellers. I mean, there's no question about that. Days on the market, 21 days. It's probably a little bit less now. Sellers sold for 99% of the list price. That's probably changed a bit recently. I would say in the past 6 months, where people are overpaying for properties than the list price, right? 22% reported reducing the asking price. So that statistic probably also has changed as right now the market is on an uptrend or increasing in values, right? So again, another indication as to who should we be targeting. We should be targeting sellers because 89% of the individuals who sell property, 89% of them are using a realtor. So they actually are looking for you. You just have to make yourself known, okay? Any questions or comments on that? All right, so for sale by owner statistics, right? Accounted for 8% of the sales. So it kind of coincides with the 89% that we saw about the realtors, right? 35% of them were by yard sign. 24% of them were neighbors, relatives, or friends. Open houses were 15%. For sale by owner websites, and now this is like paid information or social media, was 13%, but 8% for FSBO websites. And 28% did not actively market, meaning that they either didn't sell or there was just a lack of interest. Any questions or comments on that? All right, so market statistics, most difficult tasks, right? So for sale by owner, getting the right price, 15%. Understanding and performing paperwork, 12%. Selling within the planned length of time, 13%. Preparing fixing up home for sale, 9%. Having enough time to devote to all aspects of the sale, 3%. So you can see that there's very, very, very little activity that goes on with the for sale by owner. And this probably goes along with the statistic that they actually need a realtor to help them with all of these things. And we talked about that in the for sale by owner presentation, that these are selling points to a potential seller on a Facebook, right? But these statistics, again, are coming from the National Association of Realtors, and these statistics are simply telling us how little a seller on their own is incapable of doing it. Any questions or comments on that? So now these are LA statistics. So the median price range is 564. I happen to know currently, because this is January of 2018, I happen to know currently that the statistics are over 700,000 in Los Angeles County, right? Home sales actually are up. And again, these statistics are back from 2018. But I wanted to illustrate that this information is available, okay? Unsold inventory, 2.4 months. And so that has to do with exposure time and marketing time. And the median time on market is 24 days. That probably hasn't changed much. But as you can see, from January 2016 to January 2018, the trend has been going down during that time. So if we look at current market statistics, it's probably doing the opposite. Although, because the market is cyclical, you'll see a downtrend once again here in the coming months, as most have predicted. And any questions or comments on that? So here, it's a realtor investment. So with 74% of callers saying they are likely to choose another business after they have a bad phone experience, this is a massive leak in your marketing budget when one call could be your next big sale. It's common for real estate professionals to budget 10% of their commission income on marketing. Learn how to make your marketing investment pay off and ensure potential clients don't slip through the cracks. So the idea here is that if you're going to make money in the industry, don't just take the money and spend it. Take some of it and put it back into your business. So whereas it's almost like compound interest, you're using the money to make more money, right? So that's kind of the idea or illustration that I'm using here in the picture on the bottom there with putting a few coins in. You see a little sprout, you put a little more coins in, it sprouts a little more, you put some more coins in it, and it becomes a plant, right? Or it becomes a bush. And the idea behind that is the money that you're making is potentially at some point will start to compound itself to the point where you're making money. You're making money from the money that you're making. Did you have a question, Lupe?
What is your suggestion? What is the percentage of your paycheck to put aside for your business?
Most brokers say 10 to 15%. That's what you'll hear from most brokers. I think that it depends, because really what you should be doing, and this kind of goes along with some of the other presentations that we've done in terms of marketing, is find your niche market. I'll use a quote from Kobe Bryant. May he rest in peace. He said, "Find your mountain. And once you find your mountain, protect it." And what he meant by that is that he wasn't playing baseball and soccer and football. He decided to play basketball, and he really focused on it mainly as his choice of sport. So that was his mountain. Okay, But what he did was he invested all of his time and efforts into that, which was basketball, okay, to the point where he was one of the best. So what I mean by that is that find your mountain. Once you realize what is producing for you, you'll then know what to invest into that in terms of time, in terms of resources, one of them being money, okay? And who knows, it might be less than 10% in terms of money that you're investing. And it's mainly because you became proficient in the amount of time that you're spending on that. So, or it might be more than 10%. It just depends. So it's kind of a general question, but I think most brokers say 10 to 15%, where you should be choosy in how you're spending those advertising dollars. Because what you're looking for is your mountain. You're looking for your niche market. And so if you don't practice these things, it'll never happen. So might as well just not save anything, because now you're just kind of throwing money into the wind. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. Pick something and work on it. So understanding, yeah, we're on the real estate industry, but there's probably 30 different things that you could potentially get into, right? That is kind of underneath the fact that you have a real estate license. So pick one. Tyler Perry said this. He said, pick one thing and focus on it. Pick one thing and focus on it. I think that message is fairly clear and it's pretty concise, right? And I think it's good advice. I really do. But to answer your question, Lupe, I really do. I really do think that 10 to 15% is about average of what you would find people putting back into their business. And if you find a good niche, it might be less, it might be more. It just depends. So I hope I answered your question. Let's keep moving on. Any other questions? So here we have targeting, right? So internet marketing, we talked about statistics indicate that 51% of home buyers find their home on the internet. And we talked about that. That should be one of your targets in terms of something that you should produce. Buyers or sellers, statistics indicate that targeting sellers is more profitable and puts you in control, right? So again, we can be choosy on this end. Now, sometimes buyers fall in our lap, so we shouldn't ignore them, okay? But we should be targeting sellers as, yes, you will be in control of your transaction. And then the type of sales statistic indicate that standard sales comprise of 57% of the market share. Short sales follow close second. And that statistic is probably a little bit higher now. Short sales will probably be coming back soon as the market begins to stabilize, with interest rates going up slowly and will continue to go up. And we know that this to be true mainly because of inflation. That's the government's ability to control it, is to raise the interest rates. So unfortunately, we will see some stabilization, if not a decline, in the market here coming soon, the next, I would say anywhere from 6 to 18 months from now. And that's, just a prediction, right? Any questions or comments on that? All right, so let's move along. Oh, so look at that. We're already on final thoughts. Okay, so there's a science to getting market data. I wanted to touch on this to illustrate how the market data included in this presentation could have been collected and rate the level of its accuracy. That said, the National Association of Realtors has a lot of surveyed information, much of what is illustrated here. By viewing this information, one could deduce what possibly could be your target market along with your focused efforts. Looking at what is happening nationally and then funneling down to the local markets, one can then focus on specifics, giving a clear view of what to target and how much time to invest. So that kind of goes along with what Lupe was asking, right? I recommend that you seek out this information and use it to your advantage, because I can almost 100% guarantee that few others are. And I can tell you that because they don't even look at things that way, right? But just looking at the data that we had here today, okay, understanding that, yes, it's from 2018, 2017, it doesn't change the fact that the data, if you should look at it now, okay, well, it will actually lead you to say, oh, look it, I should be targeting this. And it's mainly because of the statistic. It's the activity that's going on in that particular segment. And if you have an activity that doesn't, let's say it's 3% activity, you're probably not going to have a very good outcome, because the statistics are telling you that that's not a busy item. But if the statistics are telling you 51% of this item is moving or is happening, and you target that, you should get a certain outcome, right? Or you should expect some results, right? But now at least it's an informed result. You're not what we normally call blanket marketing and or blindly marketing. So understand that Lupe is saying, hey, you know what? I want to invest some of my monies back into the business. How much should that be? Well, guess what? If you're throwing your advertising dollars into 3% of the market segment, expect to get little results. Hence, your advertising dollars are kind of being wasted. Okay, but if you're throwing it into potentially a 51% market share, where you know the statistics are fairly accurate, okay, your advertising dollars should pay off, and you'll probably be coaxed to put some more advertising dollars in because it's working for you. That makes sense? Any other questions or comments on that? All right, so we are coming up here at the end. Actually, we did pretty good on time. I kind of mentioned that this presentation should go pretty fast, and some of the information is pretty much just for illustration purposes. I did want to mention the YouTube channel. If any of you are interested in previewing the previously recorded presentations, you can visit that link. Now, obviously, you can't click on your computer now to get on it, but I do, I do send it out on the email. It's at the very bottom of the email that I sent out today. Okay, so click on the link, become a subscriber, and feel free to watch and or share that link with anyone. Okay, it's there for everyone's view. And do me a favor and please subscribe. That'll allow me to get some credit for you guys' views. But for the most part, it is a good resource for a lot of information, and it'll continue to grow weekly. So here we are, affiliates and resources. So there's my information. Feel free to call, email, or visit. It's related Christian, who's with the Old Republic Title. There's his phone number and email address. Feel free to call him anytime for information, or you happen to have a question about title. Now, I actually have an agent that is working on a time of death deed. So there was some information that was kind of floating around there in terms of getting that done. There's Miss Elizabeth Montes. She's with Urias Mortgage. She does VA, FHA, and conventional loans. And if you happen to need a pre-approval or what have you, feel free to give her a call. There's her information. Mr. David Plummer, he is a real estate trainer and coach. He does a different kind of training than I do, but I do endorse his product in terms of what he does, because he's actually better at it than I am. And I'll admit that 100% because I do appreciate what he does, and I'm impressed with what he does and how he does it. I certainly can't do that. I'm more cognitive and technical, as you can tell. The stuff that we talk about is more technical in terms of contracts, statistics, that kind of thing, right? So definitely something that you should have in your wheelhouse, but the other part of it is the motivation part. And that's what Dave works on. So there's his meeting ID and password. Feel free to take a picture of that. It's every Saturday morning at 8:15. He does that Zoom meeting every Saturday morning, and or you can contact him to get further information, okay? And then there's Shamim. She does NHDs with property ID. Feel free to contact her if you have any questions, or you should happen to want to order an NHD report for one of your transactions. All right. So moving right along here, we are at the end of the presentation. Sorry, I clicked one too many there. Thank you guys for coming on. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to unmute now. We're at the end of the presentation. Next week, I will be covering title and ownership. It's a two-part presentation, so that means it'll be next week and the following week. So know that this was kind of just a one-off, but the nugget taken from here mainly was that you should be targeting sellers and you should be on the internet. Lupe, did you have a question?
I just wanted to say that I just closed one deal, and I like to thank you for I hired you as my assistant, and you did a very good job. We could have closed early, but the sellers were not ready, and just to thank you in front of everybody that you did a very good job.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, Lupe. And actually, at the end of the day, one of the things that happens when we team up, in other words, when you say, hey, Alex, you know what, can you help me out with your transaction? I'd like for you to assist me on this transaction, right? Is it Lupe, and this is more of a question, okay? You learned some things on this transaction, okay? That's really how I got to where I'm at, because all I did was I was going through transactions, and really I was learning every single time. I was learning something, and little by little you start learning more and more things, to whereas sometimes you may not even need my assistance. You might just have a question about something, right? That's the point that I want to get you guys to. I want you to be able to be self-sufficient, to be able to help your clients the way that I know that you can, right? Because really it's just a practice thing. You know, it's not something that I have some special ability. No, I'm not some special person that has some kind of superhero ability. No, nothing like that. It's really just practice and time. And so thank you, Lupe, for allowing me to assist you. And, you know, at the end of the day, your clients were happy, and that was the goal. Because
yes, but
yeah, go ahead.
I need to also say that there's other assistants that confuse you instead of teaching you the way what you don't know.
Okay, so you know what, Lupe? I take a certain position on things because guess what? I was sitting in your spot years ago.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly the individuals or the type of individuals that you're talking about. You know, we're in sales. You know, we're about talking to people and trying to get things done. We know what the goal is. Some people, right, want to use force to try and get that to happen. Okay, I would rather use reasoning. I would rather reason with individuals rather than using force. And we find that some of those individuals, sometimes they yell, sometimes they cuss, sometimes they're offensive, right? I don't want to be any of those things. So I choose to use reasoning. And so that's one of the reasons why I kind of teach that in a sense, right? I want to exude that to all of you guys, that we have this ability. We have the ability to reason these things out. We don't have to get upset. We don't have to be crude, because you know we've all dealt with that realtor that is just, matter of fact, on this transaction, right? Sometimes they weren't answering us back because
exactly.
Yeah, because they're not into reasoning things out, right? Or even talking about things. they rather say, you know what, it's my way or the highway. And that's really no way to be in a negotiation, because really that's what we're doing. We're facilitating your buyer and seller negotiating, the negotiations between the buyer and seller. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is why I take that position, if you will. Is the other position wrong? I don't know that it's wrong or right. I don't like to put it in those terms. It's just not the one that I choose. I choose not to use force. Now, can force sometimes be my ally? It can. And really, if anybody knows me on a transaction, the level of force that I'm using is the contract. The level of force that I'm using is, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. Then I'm using force, but it's not offensive. Guess what? Those things are already in place. Those things are already written on the contract. I'm just pointing it out. And with a smile, it's kind of funny when I point something out to an agent, when they're saying they don't have to do something, and I'm telling them, excuse me, sir, but you do, because it's right here on the contract. They get pretty upset. So
like the appraisal with the FHA on my case.
yeah, exactly. So there are definitely those situations, but I will always say this, and you've heard me say this before, that we should be dealing with every single transaction, every single interaction that we have with agents and or buyers or sellers or clients, right? Or prospects, like a secret agent. We're 007. If you've ever seen any of the 007 movies, he's cool as pie, right? Cool as pie. Just stay cool. Even if you're in, like, not an argument, but just stay cool, right? That's the main thing. So Lupe was happy to close her first transaction this year. Not her first transaction, but this year, right? And she wanted to mention that to you guys. So congratulations, Lupe, on that. But yeah, it was actually pretty smooth. It actually went pretty smooth. And so
Yes.
that's how we want it, because we wanted the client now to be able to call you back and say, thank you, Lupe, so much. We're happy with their home. There's going to be some buyer remorse, because there always is, but we did the best that we could to get that on the table, so there'll be as little as possible. So when they call us back, they don't think that we swindled them somehow, or we hid something from them, or it was none of that. None of that happened. We were upfront. We disclosed everything as much as we could, and we were advocates for their goal, right? Which isn't always closing the transaction. Sometimes a buyer wants to cancel for whatever reason. We have to advocate for that. But in this case, I really do think that family will be calling you back, right? And stay in touch with them, because it's important. Referrals are your lifeblood in this business, and we have to keep our clients happy, and we have to keep them informed that we're still there, we're still working. Do you know anybody that's buying or selling? And I'm paraphrasing. These are things that we mix in the conversation. We don't just come out and say it, right? We mix it in a conversation. So that said, anything else, guys? Anything else going on? It sure is hot today, 97 degrees. I can't believe how hot it is. And realistically, I think it was Tuesday. Oh no, it was Monday. I was wearing a long sleeve shirt because it was cold. I mean, now I'm sitting here like, wow, I need to put a fan on and AC and everything else. This heat, and it's supposed to be all the way through Saturday. So you guys stay cool. It's coming up on 7 o'clock. I mean, we're really good on time. Unless anybody else has a question or comment, do we have anything else?
Nope.
Okay, all right, guys. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. You guys have a good rest of the week, and I'll see you guys next week, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, I'll see you guys then.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, you guys have a good night.
Good night.